The headlines: the Honiara Summit 2025 have agreed that fisheries will be the focus of discussions at the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference to be held in France in June. The Japanese Embassy and UNICEF signed a grant project worth $28.7 million for the improvement of school meals in Isabel and Western Province. And engaging local knowledge and working with landowners has been raised as essential in managing the stock assessment of fisheries. Hello, you're watching SIBC's TV News Bulletin. I'm Sharon Nanau. Leaders at the Honiara Summit 2025 have agreed that fisheries will be the central focus of discussions at the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference, set to take place in France this June. In a joint communiqué, the summit underscored the urgent need for continuous efforts to improve fisheries management, restore fish stocks and strengthen national reporting on fish stock status to achieve Sustainable Development Goal SDG 14.4. Alex Dadamu reports.
The Honiara Summit 2025 have agreed that fisheries will be the focus of discussions at the 3rd United Nations Ocean Conference to be held in France in June. In a joint communiqué, the summit agreed that continuous efforts to improve fisheries management and restore stocks are crucial to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal SDG 14.4. Capacity developments in fisheries stock assessments and fisheries management are needed to enable informed decision-making for improved outcomes. In his closing remarks, Prime Minister Jeremiah Manele says the outcomes of the summit calls for an increased efforts to achieve SDG 14.4.
I am pleased to note the acceptance of the technical outcomes being the outcomes communiqué from this summit, which represent the salient points covered during this 3 days gathering. I'm also pleased to announce on behalf of the Pacific Island heads of governments and high-level representatives of the Pacific represented at this meeting, our political commitment through a high-level political declaration demonstrating our agreement with the outcomes communiqué from this summit, conveying our call to the international community to accord greater recognition and higher levels of support to Pacific Island countries to strengthen their efforts to achieve SDG 14.4.
He calls on Pacific leaders to work together in achieving sustainable fisheries.
In relation to the implementation of these instruments, once again, it requires all of us, you, me together. Fifth, strengthen partnerships towards the achievement of sustainable fisheries. Delegates, while I am heartened to witness various collaborative arrangements concluded at the margins of this summit, much more can be done. I therefore urge all of us to strengthen partnerships towards sustainable fisheries. Again, it requires a collective effort. Hear me together.
Alex Dadamu for SIBC TV.
The Japanese Embassy and UNICEF have launched a $28.7 million grant project to improve school meals and nutrition in Isabel and Western Province. The initiative, which also focuses on enhancing water sanitation and hygiene.
The project will help provide sustainable food production for schools.
This project will provide sustainable food production support to communities surrounding four boarding schools in Isabel and Western Provinces and establish an agricultural distribution system for these 4 schools. In addition, the project will focus on improving the nutrition and hygiene of these boarding school students and the provision of nutrition education, which aims to create virtuous cycles for maintaining good health in Solomon Islands.
Meanwhile, UNICEF Pacific representative Jonathan Veitch says the project will benefit more than 3,000 students in the 2 provinces.
More immediately, nearly 3,000 children in these schools that have been mentioned in Isabel and Western provinces will benefit directly from healthier locally grown food and improved wash services. This is all made possible through the generous support of 28.7 million Solomon Islands dollars from the government and people of Japan. Thank you. The Solomon Islands has already made considerable progress in terms of promoting a healthy and nutritious lifestyle, with the endorsement of the National Food Security, Food Safety and Nutrition Policy and the development of health-promoting schools. However, we have to admit that 32% of children under the age of 5 are stunted.
Mary Manelegua, SIBC TV.
Dr. Eva Pagani, Senior Principal Research Scientist, stressed the importance of engaging local knowledge and collaborating with landowners to improve fisheries stock assessments, particularly in resource-limited regions. Elise Kukutu with the details.
Engaging local knowledge and working with traditional landowners has been raised as essential in managing the stock assessment of fisheries. This was highlighted by a Senior Principal Research Scientist, Dr. Eva Pagani, during a session focused on the progress of implementation on the SDG 14.4 at the Honiara Summit last week. She said working with landowners is important, especially for regions lacking resources in conducting fish stock assessments.
Often it is very complicated when you start with these. It's pretty overwhelming, the complexity out there in some of these multi-species, small-scale fisheries. So where does one start? Well, a good place is to engage the actual stakeholders. A good example is in Torres Strait, where I've worked for many years with the traditional owners around their multi-species Beche de Mer or sea cucumber fishery. So when we started, there was no formal data reporting for that fishery. And with the stakeholders and the traditional owners, we developed a harvest strategy that had a tiered structure that essentially added precautionary buffers, tailoring your approach to the amount of data, but adding extra precaution when there's more uncertainty. At the same time, this provided an incentive to improve the data collection, because if you have more data, you can get higher TACs. But it does require a very collaborative approach. We've heard a lot about the need for regional cooperation and capacity building. Certainly that starts also very much at the local level and getting that real buy-in from the fishers themselves, as well as accounting for the broader objectives of different fisheries.
In Solomon Islands, the community-based resource management team at the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources are conducting similar approaches. Fisheries Officer Priscilla Pitakaka said the work carried out is important for the sustainable management of fisheries.
So mi fala sabe go out and help them okata for carrying out awareness lo sad lo marine resources and also like the whole ecosystem as a whole, and also mi fala support him okata for developing to ota community fisheries management plan where him na ba help for safeguarding na ota marine resources blokata people inside ota coastal communities around lo Solomon Islands. In terms of sustainable fisheries, bemise, wetem wakami fala CBRM doing wetem ot communities yang bara really important for sustainability blokata marine resources for him available for okata people inside lokata communities blimi for fish him stop shells or whatever marine resources for him continue for stop, and people inside lota coastal communities blimi but are able for kakan fish all the way, yeah. And osem hembara really important na for ta carry out na marine resource management o by mi se conservation o samfala sa se tabu area o ta kain osem ya. Hembara really important to mas for supporting na this fala waka especially lo side lo sustainable fisheries, yeah. So tamo ta meke mota tabu areas o MMA by mi tale mo conservation area ba okata fish, shells and other marine species but continue for stop inside lo ecosystem or stop mo inside lo ota waters around lo ta coastal areas blo yumi.
Elisa Kukutu for SIBC TV.
Now, the Ministry of Fisheries and Marine Resources is committed to address the challenges faced by crews on board vessels through its crewing policy. The national policy, which was launched...
There's a
conditions inside of that for policy that when we put them inside lot of vessels conditions too, license conditions blocketa. So when they apply for the license, they have to ensure that whatever inside the crewing policy to support the safety and welfare block crewing will also be reflected in that condition as well. So that is where we are for the Solomon Islands. So we are currently working hard to ensure also not only for Solomon Islands crews, but can cover whoever crews on board. So there's a measures measures in place to ensure safety for all crews look after by the agency. Yeah. So I think we Solomon Islands at the one for country where first launching this crewing policy too.
Now, fisheries are a cornerstone of food security and economic stability in Pacific Island nations, supplying up to 90% of dietary protein for coastal communities. Foreign Fisheries Agency FFA Director General Noan Pakop said at the Honiara Summit on SDG 14.4.
Fisheries is crucial to Pacific Island countries' food security and economies, providing 50 to 90% of island coastal communities' dietary protein. Foreign Fisheries Agency FFA Director General Noan Pakop made the statement during the Honiara Summit on SDG 14.4, Achieving Sustainable Fisheries Pacific Regional Cooperation discussions. He said the consumption in the region is 2 to 5 times the global average. He said this makes the Pacific region's work in ensuring the globe achieves sustainable fisheries is of great importance.
Fisheries is crucial to Pacific Island countries' food security and economies, providing 50 to 90% of island coastal communities' dietary protein. The consumption in the region is also 2 to 5 times the global average. I must say that we're working towards achieving the SDG 14.4 and strengthening that within the region. Recalling on the reports from the WCPFC chair on the status of stocks and how well we as a region have come to manage the 4 key tuna species. That's the skipjack, the yellowfin, the big eye, and the albacore. It highlights the importance of, and probably the vision of our leaders in the region of setting up the regional agencies, sub-regional agencies within the region with complementary role to support the work of sustainable fisheries in the region, from setting up the FFA 45 years ago, knowing the vast area of coverage of over 30 million square kilometers of water, whilst focusing on the benefits and the economic prosperity that the ocean will bring.
Mr. Pakop adds, aside from supporting local communities in the Pacific region, the tuna from the FFA member countries contributes about 50 to 60% of the global catch.
The tuna from the FFA members, as we all know, contributes about 50 to 60% of the global catch. And members contribute about 30% to the global food security from our waters. The direct revenues that were attributed to members up to 2010 was 60 million in contribution direct to the governments as revenue to the governments through the introduction of VDS managed by the PNA has seen a dramatic increase to $500 million direct revenue to governments. Catches coming from the EZ of members equates to 1.4 million metric tons, valued at $2.7 billion USD.
Alex Dadamu for SIBC TV.
The European Union reaffirms it will continue to work together with the Pacific region on ocean governance and on sustainable fisheries. Her Excellency Barbara Plinketh, Ambassador of the European Union to the Pacific, announced during the Honiara Summit high-level session on strengthening partnership to implement SDG 14.4. She said the European Union and the Pacific have been long-standing partners on ocean matters.
The fact that we Europeans are here in numbers the European Union, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, Spain and Sweden, and that France will be hosting the UN Ocean Conference, shows our strong commitment to work together on ocean governance and on sustainable fisheries. And the European Union and the Pacific have been long-standing partners on ocean matters. The European Union Pacific Marine Partnership has been implemented for the last 7 years, and only yesterday we signed an extension of this program to lead into the second phase of the program later this year. And I'd like to now share with you 3 concrete examples on where PEOMP, our Pacific EU Marine Partnership, has helped to develop and strengthen collaboration among all of us. Firstly, it's been strengthening partnerships with key regional and local actors, sharing common objectives. Secondly, it has been supporting scientific evidence-based management for the benefit of all. And thirdly, it has been enhancing economic cooperation that maximizes benefit for all.
Her Excellency Plinketh adds, with the EU position of support to the Pacific region's marine resources, governance and sustainable fisheries, the EU will be launching a new program on trade and sustainable development for tuna businesses in the region. And a EU-Pacific Business Forum is also currently being planned for this year.
We believe that trade can act as a positive force for a green and just transition for the Pacific and for the European Union. With sustainability at its core, it can reinforce the sustainable and mutually beneficial fisheries value chain. That is why we also support initiatives such as the ENBI and engage with specific countries on access to the EU market. I'd also like to share with you that we will be launching a new program on trade and sustainable development, which will be looking at ways to support local business operators and also supporting the tuna value chain. And secondly, I'd like to share that we are at the beginning of planning for an EU-Pacific Business Forum to be held later in the year, ahead of the PIF leaders meeting here in Honiara, which will bring together businesses, including fisheries in the sectors of the fisheries from the Pacific and from the European Union, which will be an opportunity to develop cooperation further.
Now, a total of 290 recipients from the Central Guadalcanal Constituency received housing materials under the 2024 housing project. Alex Dadamu attended the handover and filed this story.
290 recipients from the Central Guadalcanal Constituency on Friday received housing materials under the Constituency Housing Project for 2024. A brief handing over event was organized with Honorable Peter Shanol Agvaka in attendance to hand out the projects to the recipients. Constituency Project Officer Ali Primo confirmed that there are 7 zones in the constituency and recipients from zones 1, 2 and 3 received their housing materials on Friday, while others will receive theirs this week.
So actually this afternoon I'm handing over project flow 2024 for housing projects. A total of 290 recipients now that benefited under this housing project. So actually, I'm of the building materials no more, same housing project. So every building materials like cement, roofing iron, steel rods, nails, and every building materials generally.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the Central Guadalcanal Constituency Committee, Michael Kelly, advised against people selling or misusing the projects as under the new CDF Act 2023. Monitoring will be implemented on the projects, and anyone found to have sold or misused the projects will be dealt with by the law.
Law CDF Act Law 2025 and onwards, and not like in the past previous years. Hem water policies and laws and penalties. So if you take a project and then you go back and you sell them, by penalty have come, under the law now. So by what officers of constituency, by me pala come around for check him now, what a project where me pala deliver him and you receive him, take him come back to the home. So you know, go and sell him lot of other people where or you like shortcut for taking money, and you sell him that one him a little bit riskier. Him got him low. Him time for doing more same. So please, for safety, blow you take him on the project, go back, put him good, by you continue for work together, and you may build him now or the project. I particularly low housing scheme project.
SIBC understands that the projects been delivered by the constituency are for last year, 2024. Alex Dadamu for SIBC TV.
The Royal Solomon Island Police Force RSIPF officers in Tulagi, Central Island Province, have remanded a father who allegedly raped his 19-year-old daughter. Provincial Police Commander Superintendent David Suakai said it is alleged that prior to the rape incident, the suspect has attempted 3 times but failed. Superintendent Suakai said on the 3 occasions the father sexually relieved himself while forcing his daughter to watch. According to PPC Suakai, the rape attempts occurred between November 2024 to October 2024. And in most attempts, the father used a knife to threaten the victim. The horrific incident occurred earlier this month when the father waited for his daughter in front of her bedroom door. The father used a knife to threaten his daughter and committed rape. After the incident, the victim sought refuge at her uncle's home and later asked 2 of her elder brothers to accompany her to the Tulagi police station, where she formally reported the matter. Now, the principal of White River Community High School has urged for the integration of artificial intelligence, AI, into the national curriculum, stressing that it should be inclusive and create a framework that supports both teachers and students. Alex Dadamu reports.
The school principal of White River Community High School, Hampton Bekepio, has called for a national curriculum that incorporates artificial intelligence or AI into education. Mr. Bekepio says using AI is supposed to be inclusive, and having the curriculum will set a framework which includes every teachers and students.
I believe we should not left anyone behind. When we use AI, it's supposed to be inclusive. I think the only way forward is to have a national curriculum that captures AI. If we don't have this national curriculum, I think we can introduce AI in perhaps urban centers, but we will, like the isolated schools, will be left out. And so I believe by having this national curriculum, it will set a framework that includes every teachers and students. It's part of the curriculum.
Meanwhile, Mr. Bekepio highlighted that professional development for teachers is equally important with the existence of AI. He said with the rise of AI in the classrooms, ongoing training for teachers is essential to help them effectively integrate and utilize these new technologies, ensuring they are not left behind in the changing educational landscape.
Now that the AI is already here, I think PD, professional development for teachers, is equally important. We cannot say, wait for the national curriculum. And so I believe if we can train, equip, empower teachers, I agree with Wendy, we can better manage and use the AI more responsibly.
Alex Dadamu for SIBC TV.
The Royal Solomon Island Police Force RSIPF is investigating the death of a 25-year-old man found floating off the coast of his home village, New Delhi, on 17th April 2025. The young man had set out to fish in his dugout canoe around 4 p.m. that afternoon. Hours later, his canoe was seen floating with no one aboard, sparking concern among his relatives. A search was immediately launched by family members, and the body of the fisherman was discovered later that evening around 7 p.m. Superintendent Michael Ramosaya, the supervising provincial police commander for Maritime province, confirmed that local police from both Auki and Malu police stations are working closely with the deceased family to find out the cause of his death. The cause of the man's death remains unknown, and police are exploring all possibilities as they continue their investigations. Authorities are urging the public to provide any relevant details that could help shed light on this tragic incident. And that's news. Follow us on sibconline.com.sb and our SIBC News Facebook page for more of our latest stories. Thanks for watching.